your feet like this, like this. Move 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 your feet like this, like this, like this. Move your feet like this. Move your feet like this, 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 like this.
All right, folks, I am back. All right, folks, I am back. And I'm going to take care of this echo. Okay, that echo's gone. Sorry about that. Well, thank you for being here, everybody. Been a while since I've been online. I had a lot of stuff going on in life. Just took too much of my time. Couldn't really do anything. But here we are. We're back. Since you last saw me, I have since moved to Southern California. No longer in the greater Seattle area. A lot more sun. A lot more expensive to live here, though. Hold on a second. Now, I've been trying to work my way back into a schedule that allows me to actually get online. So it's probably going to be mostly weekends that I'll be able to get online. I'm working from home right now, so it gives me a little bit of time to research what I'm doing for my new stream. I'm going to be try to do some podcast stuff from now on. I mean, I love gaming. Don't get me wrong. Love it. Loved having you guys watch me as I was playing State of Decay 2. Always great game for that one. But the fact of the matter is, gaming can get stale sometimes. And there's just so much stuff going on in the world. I'm a very big, I get a lot of... I gather a lot of information from being online as much as I am. And sometimes if I don't have an outlet for that, it just kind of builds up. So one of the things I've really been thinking about is just trying to do kind of a podcast sort of stuff. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to just talk about real world events. We're going to talk about what's going on. I'm oddly enough, I'm in the path of what could be a hurricane. I don't think it'll be a hurricane by the time it hits us tomorrow. But Hurricane Hillary is off the west coast of Mexico, moving up and getting closer to LA. Death Valley is going to hit a year's worth of rain in one day. That is just crazy, Some of these places where I live around here get maybe 2-3 inches a year. And tomorrow, I'm gonna look at this real quick. We are scheduled to get how much? And I'm looking at my weather app right now, guys. It tells me there's 100% chance tomorrow of rain. Even when I lived in Seattle, I never got 100% chance of rain. They're predicting at least 2 to 3 inches of rain tomorrow for us, at least. So we're gonna get a lot of rain tomorrow. I got a message from my internet provider saying, "Hey, we are making preparations for the possibility that you guys might lose service. So hey, I might not be able to get online tomorrow, or if I do, it'll be through my on my phone on YouTube. It'll be yay." But that's the kind of stuff I'm doing now. Is being in Southern California. I get less rain, but I get more sun. So it looks like I'm gonna be getting both rain and sun tomorrow. But we moved down here. My wife and I moved down here about the beginning of June. We just wanted to be closer to her family, and that's what we're doing. That's literally what we did. We packed a U-Haul at the end of my last day of work at Harborview up in Seattle was June 1st, and we were packing the U-Haul in the middle of that. We got on the road at about 5 a.m. on June 2nd. Took us 3 days because her parents came up and she had family up here, came up to visit us up there, and took us a little bit of time, but we drove. Went to Yosemite, and it was closed, so I drove a U-Haul. If anybody knows that area, I drove a U-Haul up that mountain road for almost 2 hours just to find out that that the park was closed. And if anybody understands frustration, that right there is frustration. Can you imagine all the gas that you spend to get up there, and then you get up there and you're like, oh, well, hello, we're closed. There's a fire. There's a wildfire possibility right now, so we're closed. We don't have the people to cover it, and if you got caught in the middle of wildfire at Yosemite National Park, we couldn't get you. So hey, you know what? Boom. I most frustrating day I think in my adult life was driving up that mountain road and finding out that Yosemite was closed. Because let me tell you guys, there are places up that road that if you are not paying attention, you're going off the side. They're not guardrails. There is very, very slim roads there. It is literally a 2-lane, and you have blind curves in places that I was going like 25 miles an hour around a curve. I had never driven a U-Haul before. I drove those U-Haul vans because my wife and I had moved a couple times in Seattle from one area to the other, and I had driven those vans before. Those vans are easy, right? You jump on the highway, you're going 65 on the vans, good. But it was a 15 footer, perfectly fit what we had. We had a 1-bedroom apartment. Everything we had fit inside the 15 footer, but I had never driven that before. Okay. I shit you not, like I spent at least $600 on gas getting down to California. Yeah, really hit the pocketbook there. Really, really, really sucked. But you know, that's what you got to do. What's up, Amara Dave? Thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in on my sort of rebranding. But you know, when you got family, when you're married, when you have a wife, you don't get to make all the decisions about yourself anymore. It's not about you anymore. She desperately wanted to make memories with her parents. That was her entire goal. And this is what we get to do, you know. Probably within the first 2 weeks of us being here, her parents had realized a dream that they had. They had always wanted to go to church with their 2 children, and their son came over here from the Philippines, and he was here for about 2 months. No, actually about 4 months almost. And everybody went to church together, and it was probably the happiest I've ever seen my wife. So I got no problems. I got no qualms about it, you know. We take it life day by day. We go. And that's basically it. I also had gotten myself into kind of a bad situation where I was working 6 days a week, and the one day off that I did have, I didn't want to do anything. And, you know, it became an issue that when you work so much, when you work like that, you've got a lot of stress. I didn't have any time for myself. I didn't have any time for my wife. And it was getting bad. So, you know, we had been slowly planning to make the move for probably a couple months. We've been discussing it. We've been talking about it, trying to figure it out. But it just got to a point where my wife and I were just like, you know what? F it. We're going to do it. And, you know, it's been okay so far. I finally got a good job, work from home. I don't have to start working until about 9 o'clock. And then I go my second job as well. I have 2 jobs, but I'm trying to work it out so that I don't have to work 6 days a week. I only work like 5 days a week. So this week is actually the first week where it actually came all together, where I was actually able to not work on a Saturday and a Sunday. Today I've just been trying to relax as much as I can. It is hotter than the 7 rings of hell here in California right now. It's kind of like the calm before the storm, right? Extra heat's coming down our way until the rain gets here. And let me tell you guys, the forecast for tomorrow is 80 degrees, but it's still supposed to rain. So it's not going to be like a cool rain. It's going to be 80 degrees of rain. Like, yeah, it's like 80, okay? That's actually why... It's actually why I'm so glad I got the work from home job, is because when I first moved down here, I transferred from an assisted living place that has locations up and down the West Coast. It's got locations in the Seattle area, a couple in Oregon, Southern California, and one in Nevada. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna transfer down, guarantee myself to have a job. Didn't really like it. And it wasn't about the residents. I didn't really agree with what the people were doing, because if anybody understands what an assisted living place is, an assisted living place are people who are elderly. They're not typically disabled. They're just elderly. They can't really look after themselves as much. What it is they still want to remain independent, but physically they really can't. Okay, so what they do is they pay money to stay in a facility that has people that try to allow them to remain as independent as they can. It is not a nursing home. Okay, it is an assisted living facility. That's what it is. Okay, my job, is not to put them on a time or a schedule. It is to help them maintain the most independence they possibly can. Okay. And the thing that bothered me the most about where I was working was everybody was trying to make it like a nursing home. You know, they were telling us, hey, you've got to get everybody down for breakfast by 8 a.m. I'm like, listen, what if the people I'm taking care of don't want to be down there at 8 a.m.? And like, doesn't matter. Be down there. And it just kept gnawing at me. And the sheer fact that I'm working in 75 to 80 degree weather and the facility is heated at like 73 degrees made it even worse, made me more irritable. I chafed a lot, let me tell you guys. I chafed a lot walking in that area. It was crazy. But I just could not stand how those people treated the residents. You're right, assisted living, you know, the way that the facility that I worked at, it's like a legitimate facility. They had cooks, they had chefs, whatever. They had a dining facility. We would bring the people down to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But the cafeteria, the kitchen, the dining room people were like, oh, we don't like running around so much and doing all this stuff at different times. We really need to regiment this time. And so they were like, well, breakfast needs to be at 8. Lunch needs to start at 11:30. I'm like, you guys realize that the people that live here that spend $12,000 to $14,000 a month to live here, they're all 85 to 95 years old. They've all worked for 70 plus years of their lives. Waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning, working until 5 or 6 at night. You know, they've done this for 70 years. They did this for 70 years. Their bodies and their minds, they can't do it anymore. But you're telling me that you want me to get these people up when they're sleeping, when they're sound asleep, because you don't want to cook an egg at 9:30 when they're actually awake on their own. And no matter who I told, I went to the general manager of the facility, everything. No matter who I told, deaf ears. Didn't matter. And so I get this job offer for a pretty major hospital network. I'm not going to say the name, okay? Because what I'm going to be talking about in these podcasts, there's probably going to be people here that don't like me or don't like what I'm saying, okay? But it's a pretty decent sized hospital network, and they're like, "Hey, we got this online job, customer care. You're gonna be answering a lot of questions. You're gonna answer the phone." And I'm like, "Sign me up, okay? You're telling me that I don't have to get out of bed until 8:30 on my own? I can roll out of bed and go to my computer and just start work?" They gave me brand new of everything. They gave me 2 brand new monitors. They gave me a brand new webcam. They gave me everything. Okay? I went to Torrance on last Tuesday and spent had to have been 6 hours at least just getting my stuff. And the only reason I had to go to Torrance and spend that long at a time there is because I had to hook into their wired network and download all of their apps through them. And then I come home and I'm training. So, I mean, I'm getting paid a little bit more than I was at the assisted living. I get to stay at home most of the day, till 5 o'clock, 5:30. Then if I'm working at my second job, I shuffle off to my second job. Literally just that. Saves on gas, saves on food, I don't have to go to a sandwich shop and get something to eat because I don't want to eat the food at the assisted living place. I can go just downstairs, 1 flight of stairs. I live on a 3-story apartment home in a gated community down here. I just have to go down 1 set of stairs to my kitchen and make myself a sandwich, or my wife will cook something for me, and it works out perfectly. And from all accounts, it seems to be a pretty outstanding organization. Just like every other organization, it's going to have issues. What's up?
I need a t-shirt.
Kind of what?
T-shirt.
T-shirt? Which one?
T-shirt.
Which one?
For me, t-shirt.
I know for you. Which one do you want?
The Mariners t-shirt.
Okay. This one? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Nope. You're good, Ecstatic. So anyway, what I was saying is, it's a really legitimate question. Actually, Ameridave, they actually stay with us every weekend. So what they do is they actually take care. They do their own assisted living stuff. They stay on location of where they work throughout the week, and then we have a second bedroom. They stay with us. So, really close. This is actually a very big upgrade for them, and we're super happy that we were able to get it all worked out together. They had been staying basically in a room, but now they have their own kitchen. They have an apartment with 2.5 bath. They have their own big room with a walk-in closet. I mean, they are living the high life right now. And I am super happy. Yeah. So, actually, last night I actually went. We went to. What is it? We went to a birthday party for my wife's primary. One of her family members turned 89 last night, and we went. It was like a little dance party we went to. It was pretty cool. Yeah, pretty much the in-law suite. It's all right though. It's a nice room. We're in a good room. We got a nice big closet back there. I got 2 desks. I got my work desk right here, and I got this thing right here. The room's not bad. The apartment's really nice. I hope so for the price that we pay for it. But back to my train of thought. Basically, everything that the assisted living place was trying to make us do, it was really gnawing at me because I joined an assisted living place, is how I look at it. I didn't join a nursing home. Literally, I joined an assisted living facility company. I did not join a company for nursing homes. I have done the nursing home thing. And let me tell you guys, if you ever have the choice between letting your parents stay at a nursing home and letting them stay in your home, always take your home. Okay? I'm going to be dead honest with you guys. Learn how to give them their medication. Suck it up to take care of them when they need it, because anything that you have to go through to take care of them, they have to go through 10 times worse at a nursing home. Okay? Nursing homes aren't meant to be homey. Nursing homes are meant to make money, basically. That's it. They are there to make money. It's like it's the same thing for like a rehab facility. They work their workers to death, and they could care less about the people who are there to live there. So I always tell people, if I ever have the chance, my dad will live in my attic before I put him in a nursing home. I know that in America we really don't have that mentality of taking care of your family so much. But if I could convince one person in the world to not put their father or mother or in-laws or whatever into a nursing home just because it's more convenient, and to have them live with you, I would definitely feel accomplished in life. Because having worked in a nursing home and having worked in a rehab facility and having worked in an assisted living place, I would take the fourth option of of building a third room just for that. Okay? So take it from me, guys, on this as a personal, I know this on a personal level, okay? Because I've gone through every facet of it. The people at a nursing home, they talk a big game. They don't care. Okay? That's it. So like I was saying, this is actually the first weekend that I've really been able to have 2 straight days off. I don't think, outside of calling out sick from my old job, I was never scheduled a Sunday off with my wife until this weekend, actually. So 3 years that I've known my wife, I've always worked on Sundays. It's just the job in Seattle that I used to work at gave me like time and a half just working on Sundays. And so, when I met my wife, I'd already had the set schedule. And one of the stipulations of getting that set schedule was, my boss was like, once I give you this schedule, you're not moving. You're not leaving that schedule. And I was like, all right, fair enough. And I made that choice before I met my wife, so I was already stuck in it. So, so I'm finally at a job where I'm going to hopefully work Monday through Friday, or at least have Sunday off no matter what. That's my goal. So, this weekend is actually a real blessing for me, even though we have that possible hurricane coming through. It's a real blessing for me that I'm super happy to get. Also, guys, go ahead and go on over to my YouTube if you haven't already. I'm really trying to get that over 1,000 subscribers. I'm simulcasting on both, multi-streaming. Whatever, if Twitch doesn't like it, too bad. I'll just go full-time YouTube. So that's another thing that bothers me. Twitch has all these stipulations, but they don't want to actually allow their people to freaking grow as streamers. Yay! One of the things you could do, Ecstatic, is you could find home health aides. Tend to work pretty well if you can figure out what his needs are as a person, like what he needs and how far he needs and how much care he needs. Sometimes a home care aide, like what my in-laws do, is a viable option on what he can do, because while it's not necessarily family, it's somebody that can be standby to assist him if he needs and to help him with his socialization skills. And if you find the right home care aides, I mean, they'll stay with you for forever as long as they're getting what they believe is fair compensation, and the longer they know your father, the more and better care that he can get from them. So, I mean, I don't know what your options on that, but it's definitely something I would look for if I was you. There's a lot of need for home care aides out there. Dementia, yeah. Yeah. So, it could very well need just someone in home care aid. Doesn't matter, but I'm just throwing that out there. You know, that's true. That's true. Like, the thing that bothers me about Twitch, there was a guy, who was talking about it, and he put up a graphic that I think he had like 1,200 subs on his Twitch, and he only got like $1,000 from it. And if anybody here, I'm pretty sure you all know, but a Twitch sub is like $4.99, right? So him only getting like $1,000 to $1,100 off of 1,200 subs means that Twitch is taking a ridiculous amount off the top, you know, which is super crazy because a company that would want you to grow and bring revenue to them wouldn't take that much money. Twitch is the worst. Ecstatic, to be honest. Twitch as a platform for this is the worst. Amazon doesn't care if you grow. Amazon's just a number, or to Amazon you're just a number. Literally, that's all you are to them, is you're just a number on a piece of paper, on a Excel spreadsheet. You know. I don't know. I don't know if Kick is going to be anywhere to stand for any long periods of time. I think the hype kind of died down a little bit. I haven't actually been over there in a long time. I was going to start doing it on Kick, but I'm not sure if it is. But having a company like Kick, run by people who were streamers who understand the predatory nature of something like Twitch, and sitting there saying, well, we're not going to do that. Now, I don't know if that's going to be viable long term. But getting 95% of your sub revenue is actually a good thing. Because in my opinion, we're the ones doing the work. We're the ones that are bringing the revenue in as the streamer. And I'm not saying this in a cocky manner or anything. I'm just literally saying that they're not out there doing stuff. We're out there bringing stuff in. So, what is LiveSpace? I don't think I've heard of LiveSpace. Let me look at it real quick. Because I haven't really heard of it, so couldn't really say I had a huge opinion of it, but give me a second. I know that Facebook gaming really kind of took a nosedive. India's most... No, that can't be it. That can't be it. LiveSpace. I mean, I've never looked at LiveSpace, so I mean, I'd have to get back to you on that one, Ecstatic, because I couldn't tell you really an honest opinion of it, because I don't know. Here we go. Severe weather from Tropical Storm Hillary may cause power outages. All right. Well, it seems like the people who want to pretend like they care about our well-being are pretending like they care about our well-being. All right then. Yeah. I think the problem with the Facebook thing is Reels used Reels used to be kind of a way for people to make money. People used to do Reels and kind of make a little bit of money if they were big enough. And then Facebook's like, no, we don't want to monetize Reels anymore. We're gonna stop that. So what's the point, right? If you're not gonna monetize it, I don't like. What's the point of doing it if you're not gonna have the chance to actually gain anything from it? And I know I'm kind of breaking everything down into, money, but I mean, in reality, what are we doing here? Like, a part of it's got to be for some sort of reward or benefit for us, right? Most of the benefits, obviously, going to, at least on my part, is going to try to be for the audience. I spent the last 50 minutes rambling, just talking about random stuff to you guys, and you're still here talking to me. So obviously, there's some benefit going on to you guys. But, at the end of the day, there's a little bit of monetary value to everything we try to do. And if companies are going to make that impossible, what do you want to do, right? And yeah, I actually live right down the right down the highway from an Amazon fulfillment facility, Ecstatic, and I wouldn't want to drive in that direction if I needed the last drink of water on earth and they had it in a bottle, because that place looks depressing as hell. Rumble. I posted a couple videos on Rumble, but it's too volatile. It's like they're too up and down. They're not steady enough right now. They're trying to make so many changes, and it's just not worth it. And the fact that you have to, when you're using your phone, you have to use two separate apps. You have to use like the Rumble camera to make a video and then upload it to the Rumble app was really, really tedious to me, and it's not something I really wanted to do long term. And so I was like, yeah, I tried this a couple times. I'm just going to step away. And it's just too onerous for me. I mean, TikTok is still going to be right now the best possible way for people to make short form videos. TikTok and YouTube, when it comes down to it. I'm trying to rebuild my TikTok account. Somebody reported my account and got me banned. And basically, all the only videos I made were for Ukraine, the Ukraine war videos. Yeah, I had actually hit 1,000 followers and finally able to go live Ecstatic on TikTok. I was so happy. I was like, yes, maybe now I can start to grow. And then I was scrolling through it one night, and I scrolled up, and it goes, your account has been banned. I'm like, well, that's not nice. All I did was Ukraine war videos. That's it. And I didn't even show explicit material. Like drone videos. I'd found drone videos, and I would put drone videos online. So, trying to regrow that has been really hard. Yeah, like, what is it? When I forget when I don't know if anybody has been following the Ukraine war. I've followed it really big, and we're going to go into that here in a little bit. But when Prigozhin did his little coup, right? I posted videos about it on my new account, and they kept getting like shadow banned. They kept like automatically be getting getting blocked out as sensitive material or like somehow automatically reported, and like the amount of appeals that I put in there, like for 4 days, was astronomical, and it was just cracking me up, because I would put an appeal in, and like 5 minutes later, like, oops, our bad. There's nothing wrong with this video. Let's put it out there. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, Ameridiv. But also, China seems to be cooling on the whole friend of Putin thing. Oh no. If you're talking about BRICS, BRICS isn't going to amount to much of anything. In my opinion, you're always going to have to trade. You can't really trade. Well, I guess the reason why the US dollar is so strong, the way it always is one of the reasons is because the US trades with everybody. We trade with China, probably one of our biggest geopolitical foes in the world. We still trade with them. We help them become what they are now, right? So even if enough countries signed on to do BRICS, you still have to trade against the US dollar, because you're not going to get Europe to join. You're not going to get Morocco. You're not going to get Egypt. You're not going to get Israel. You're not going to get Ukraine. You're not going to get the Philippines, Japan, South Korea. Malaysia's probably not going to join. Vietnam, probably not. There's so many countries that are not going to join BRICS, that are going to stick with the US dollar on the international stage, that it just makes BRICS defunct right away. And also, if you're taking Russia out of the SWIFT market, the international banking market, what's the point? Like, the ruble is just in shambles right now. It's like 150 rubles to like 1 US penny or $1, you know? So, you know, you need a strong currency to back up. You need a strong country's economy to back up a global finance market, right? And basically, Russia's a gas station with nukes is what it's called on the international, right? People call Russia a gas station with nukes. What's China going to do? China doesn't have a blue water navy to protect international waterways for trade. They don't have any of that stuff, and they're so busy antagonizing and pissing off everybody in that area with their annexation of building of artificial islands. Okay, you know, we get parts from China because we send ships, or we guarantee the safety of ships in international water. That's what the U.S. does. You know, the U.S. as a country, as a nation, allows safety on the seas. Like, that's our guarantee. When people are like, oh well, I've got this shipment coming. I've got this shipment coming from Beijing, China, and it's supposed to get to my house in a week. That's because we, as a country, the United States and our allies, guarantee that. So that's the kind of stuff. It's like, there's no other country in the world that can guarantee that safety on that level. Okay? There just isn't. You know, even with the United States' diminishing navy, we still are the strongest navy and air force in the world. There's no question about it. You can talk about whatever you want about how you think our troops are trained. No matter what, you're still looking at the strongest navy and the strongest air force in the world. Our air force has the logistical capabilities of transporting an entire armored brigade anywhere in the world within 72 hours. You cannot name me a country in the world that gives that guarantee. You can't. because there is not one with that logistical capabilities. And then look at and our Air Force, we have more fighter jets, just fighter jets, than like the next 10 countries combined. So we as a country guarantee trade routes. And that's why the dollar is as strong as it is. Regardless of the economy, every country trades in the US dollar. They all have their local currencies, the yuan, the won, the peso, everything. Every country has their local currency. But on the international market, the dollar is what rules it. I think we're near par on the euro, but the euro is only really good for Europe. It's just a currency for Europe, for the continent of Europe. So, yeah. So when you sit there and say, hey, BRICS, I don't buy BRICS as it being a thing. We're talking about electric vehicles now. Interesting enough, I don't know if anybody read the article or listened to anything about it, but Taiwan is literally probably the only country that on a regular basis can give us the chips that we need to run all of our electric vehicles. It's really weird, but it's also weird that it's their advantage that only the Taiwanese know how to run those factories at all. Only the Taiwanese know how to run those. So if the Chinese were to invade, the Chinese wouldn't know how to run those factories, and they wouldn't be able to use the chips anyway. They wouldn't be able to produce the chips because they don't know. They would have to force Taiwanese people to run those factories. So with the electric cars, we're kind of at the mercy of Taiwan, but that's probably why we always maintain such a great level of rapport with the country of Taiwan, is because they've cornered the market in something that is very important for us these days in everything that we do, and without that relationship we probably have to spend more and more money. But it was kind of interesting when there, with all this talk about China potentially invading Taiwan, there was a general who, I think a retired general, who was like, what we would do in that situation is we would just send some B-2 stealth bombers over those factories and we would destroy the factories. It'd be a lost cause. And then the U.S. government had to come out and say, no, we wouldn't do that. No, guys. We'll have to walk that back. We're not going to destroy a factory. No scorched earth in American politics, guys. You make all if you made all American cars stick shifts, I mean, I don't know. There'd be so many accidents. People wouldn't understand how to drive. I don't know how to drive a stick shift. I have a 2021 hybrid. I don't know how to drive a stick shift. I would be terrible on the road with a stick shift. I do have a dual motor vehicle, though. I do have that. And honestly, I think the thing about California is mostly about the regulations. Anything else? It's probably one of the most regulated states in America is California. And it's those regulations that make it hard to do anything. I think California passed a law that stated you can't drive a semi if it was made before like 1990. I'm gonna look at this real quick. Okay, so there's a law that states that basically said that after a certain time, if your truck was built before a certain year, like before 2000 or something, you couldn't drive it on the roadways in California. I don't know when that law is supposed to come into effect, but I read something about it, so I was like, yeah, that's a lot of shipping that you're just going to not want to get done. Because I don't know how you're going to keep your state stocked with supplies if everybody has to buy brand new trucks. Because that is a lot of money spent. Those trucks are not cheap. You know, the thing about California too is there's a law that was put on the books about actually last year, I think, that gave people who didn't have permanent residence in California the right to have an ID, because typically you have to have like a social security number to get an ID, and if you're here, with an expired visa or something, whatever, you don't have that to get an ID, right? That's not even supposed to go into effect until 2027. The law passed in 2022, I believe. So the law states that in 5 years, right? So that's a law that the state legislature passed and the governor signed in California that people have to wait 5 more years. Can you imagine passing a law that gives somebody actual, like, ability to live where they're living and do what they need to do, like get a bank account, right? To build some sort of life. Like, throw out all the immigration questions on this one. Just a simple fact of having an ID to get a bank account, right? To sit there and to champion a law passed last year in 2022 stating that, oh, well, if for some chance you're here in the state and you're not here legally, you're here past a visa, whatever, at least now you have the ability to have an ID, so you can be ID'd, so you can get a bank account. But then to sit there and say, well, now I got to wait 5 years for this law to get into effect, how, like, I don't understand the disconnect there of writing a law like that. And it's so weird to me to sit there and say I have to wait 5 years for a law to go into effect. You shouldn't have to wait 5 years for a law to go into effect. And yes, I live in California, and I can't stand that guy. All right, well, I've been going for an hour rambling. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Really, really love you guys for being here, helping me out. You're amazing. I'm smelling a lot of food downstairs. I'm not going to leave you guys. I'm still here for a while. So I'm here for a while, guys. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not really hungry right now, but my wife is cooking crispy pork belly. Oh my god. I mean, if you want me to go into politics, I'll gladly go into politics on this one. Do I think that he will run? I think he's the only viable alternative on the Democratic side to Biden right now. He's the only one with a large enough name recognition, and he's the only one that might basically have not as much baggage as others. Kamala Harris isn't doing it. Nobody wants Kamala Harris in that position. Joe Biden's over 80 years old. And if anybody knows anything about the medical field, it's painfully obvious that Joe Biden has health issues. He doesn't want to be president. He doesn't want to do the day-to-day job of presidency. That was the problem with Trump as well. They don't want to do the day-to-day job of being president, okay, at all. And the fact that almost 2 weeks for Joe Biden to muster up the time to go to Maui for 1 day out of his another week-long vacation in Lake Tahoe should tell you all you need to know about our current state of affairs in our government, okay? The guy was sitting on a private beach in New Jersey. No, in Delaware. Sorry, Delaware. A private beach on Delaware. Asked by the press, hey, do you have any comment? And his exact response was, no comment. We're literally hearing stories of Maui, of people having to be, like, shoveled off the pavement because they were burned so bad. And it's such a tragedy that as Americans, we don't expect much. We honestly shouldn't expect much from our politicians, but we at least expect them to show a little bit of compassion to the people that voted them into office. And the fact that he can't muster up any type of compassion really irks me. It just, like, on a personal level, really, really irks me that he just doesn't seem to care. And he gets mad when he's called out on it. Um, the press wipe his ass, basically. So he's not called out on it very often. But when it comes to 2024, I would say probably the only two viable options the Democrats have would be Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden. That's about it. Joe Biden just by default, because he's the president right now, and the president is typically the head of the political party that he is a member of. So, you know, sitting presidents, sitting first term presidents don't get primaried. Now, we might see a primary for the Democrats. It's very possible that Kamala Harris could want to throw her name in the ring. Very possible that Hillary Clinton could want to do it again. But typically, you don't see primaries from the sitting president. So, if I had to bet money, I would say that Biden's going to be running again in 2024 next year. The problem on my end is the GOP is frustrating the hell out of me. So we're going to go into another subject here, guys. This is probably the subject that people might disagree with me on, and I hope you guys bear with me and just listen out and whatever. The GOP right now is pissing me off. Okay. There is no way, in my opinion, that Donald Trump should be in the position he is in to potentially be the nominee for 2024. The guy is under 4 indictments, felony indictments. Okay? And even if you poke holes in any of that, the sheer fact that a grand jury here heard enough evidence and said, you know what, we need to indict this guy. This guy needs to answer whether he's innocent or not in a court of law, should automatically, in my opinion, disqualify him from even running. Legitimately, it should. You know, I don't want another presidential election like 2020 where the story is the character of one of the guys running for president in that way. He's an asshole. He's not loyal. He just does not understand how to let things go. And it's because that's how we grew up. It's because he was never confronted as an adult or as a young person that taught him the humility. He was basically given everything through his whole life. His father was rich. His father gave him a $1 million loan. He calls it a loan when he was 18 years old. You know, if Trump, let me just put it this way: if Trump at 18 had gone into federal employment, like the government, like a government position, he would be like he'd be the head of a cabinet basically, because he's failed that much in his life. 2016 was like a fluke that he won. He faced the perfect person to win in 2016, right? The perfect person. That's the only reason he won, because of who he faced. Because you got to think about it. Joe Biden stayed in his basement pretty much during the entire 2020 campaign, and it was an entire campaign run based on who Donald Trump was and not the issues at hand of what was going on. So that was everything that was going on there. What's that? You okay? Hold on, guys. I'll be right back. All right, guys, I'm back. So, what I was saying basically is, like, I think that a rock with an R next to their name would have a 50-50 chance of winning next year. But if Trump himself is on the ticket, then Biden's going to win again. And I mean, every poll points this out. You know, people like to cherry pick certain polls with certain numbers, but if you go to any respected poll, anything, you know, you're going to see that, you know what? Biden's going to win if he faces Trump again. Because it doesn't become about the policies or what Biden has done in 4 years, which is what it should be. It should be, has Joe Biden fulfilled his promises, and has Joe Biden been a net positive to the American people? That's what it should be. In an ideal world, that's what we would be doing. That's what we would be talking about. But if Trump is on the ballot, it doesn't become that anymore. It just becomes Trump sucking the oxygen out of the room, Trump being a jerk, and that's it. And people don't like to vote for jerks. The reason why he got more votes in 2020 was because the people that didn't vote for him in 2016 were basically like, well, the cat's out of the bag. I did all I could in 2016. He still won. So there's no point in not voting for him in this instance. But even with that, even with everything that happened on that, Joe Biden still had 83 million votes? So people vote against Trump because he is such a negative figure. He just causes so much negative emotion. Right? If you like his policies, okay, that's fine. That's fair. That's a fair thing. Okay, you can like a person's policies. But character does have a big sitting for a lot of people in this country on how they vote. And they did not want him in there for another 4 years. And then everything that happened after the election, his phone call to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, asking him literally on a phone call, I need to find 11,800 votes because we lost the state by 11,799, and I really believe we won this state. I don't know, guys. Whatever way you want to look at that, that is tampering with elections. That is asking an elected official in a state to change votes, and that is against the law. And that right there, even that alone, should automatically disqualify him from even running for president, let alone being elected as a dog walker in the smallest town. So, you know, when you think about it, whether you don't like the motivations behind who helped to fund the election campaigns of the DAs, of the district attorneys that are bringing the charges against him, everyday people in those cities and those states sat there and listened to evidence presented to them under a sealed grand jury, and they themselves decided that what we heard deserves us to bring him up and sit in a chair in a courtroom and defend himself. That's it. Like, you can boil it down to anything you want, but in the base form, that's what it is, in my opinion. You know, it's very hard to say anything else on it because of that. And I do agree. There are a lot of politicians in this country in their 80s and 90s. It was very weird when you listened to one of the more recent votes in the Senate. Someone, I think, I don't remember the senator that did it, but Dianne Feinstein actually has her daughter as her power of attorney, as her durable power of attorney. So her daughter actually makes her decisions for her, which should automatically be like, yeah, we're not going to have you as a senator in this state. You should retire. She, it's funny. The hot mic caught somebody saying, "Just vote yes, Diane. Just vote yes," because she tried to ask a question about what it was, so she didn't understand the vote, and someone's just like, just vote yes," and so she voted yes. Super super funny to me that was like that. Like, all right, she just really wanted her to vote yes. But yeah, like. And then you had that moment in a press conference with Mitch McConnell where he kind of basically just like froze, couldn't like talk. So we definitely have a problem, in my opinion, of senators and Congress people aging themselves out, and I have a very big problem also with politicians who go into Congress or Senate or public service with like $100 to their name, and 10 years later they leave with like a $500,000 to their of their net worth. So they basically made themselves rich somehow at the expense of serving the American people, and I think that's really a really big issue in American politics, is people doing that. But yeah, that is basically like that's a basic overview of what I think of the upcoming election. If the GOP actually gets its head out of its butt and nominates a semi-serious candidate, right? Just a semi-serious candidate, God, I think even Chris Christie could beat Joe Biden, right? You're finally seeing candidates. You're finally seeing candidates go against Trump, right? You're finally seeing, because a lot of the candidates that are there were members of his circle, in his inner circle, right? You're finally seeing Chris Christie go after him, which is pretty cool in my opinion. I don't think you can completely erase how much his nose was stuck up his butt, but you can at least give him props for being willing to sit there and actually confront him. And yes, if there's one law that I agree should be made, it is members of Congress and members of the federal government should not be able to buy stocks. You should give them the basic 401k with a massed investing option from the U.S. government after a certain amount of years. And if they reach that, then, there you go. Because let's see here. I'm gonna So compensation for most senators, representatives, delegates, and resident commissioner from Puerto Rico is about $174,000. That is reported for the fiscal year 2023. So yeah, it's been pretty steady. So a senator is in office for 6 years. So just doing rough math, let's do some math on that, guys. That's about $1 million in 6 years. Okay. But you take away house payments and everything like that. They shouldn't be allowed to trade stock options from companies that they know are going to tank. Those senators, I agree. Those senators know if they're going to award a military contract to Boeing or Lockheed Martin or whatever, and to have stock in those companies is a massive conflict of interest is what it is. Massive conflict of interest. Should not be able to do that at all. So I agree. There should be a law passed that does not allow them to do that at all. And when you think about it, $174,000. That's not bad. You set them up with their own little 401k plan, and maybe if they hit 2 terms in the Senate and 3 terms in Congress, then the U.S. government matches their vesting just like any private company would, And then the possibility of having some sort of retirement, And then they're like, hey, this retirement maxes out. You cannot go past 16 years, right? So then you would remove some of the financial incentive to stay in Congress, right? Because if you're a 3rd-term senator, you no longer get retirement midway through your 3rd term. So you're already maxed out in your retirement. So, if you're taking 10% a year for your retirement, what's that? 10%? 17 times, you've got $174,000 in a retirement, earning 5%, and then the government matches that after 16 years. Got a nice little nest egg that you can kind of give yourself to go write a book or something and make money that way if you want. Go talk on a circuit, or just go retire in a state that you can afford. I don't know. There's many ways to do it, but it requires the political will that nobody in Washington, D.C. has at all. None of them have the political will to limit themselves. You can't see that anywhere. And I don't see that happening at all, ever. So, it's a problem. Certainly something that needs to be fixed. But I don't think it ever will. So, something we're stuck with, guys. Something we're stuck with. So, actually, one of the things I really, really, really wanted to talk about today was one of the things that's been interesting to me a lot is Ukraine. Okay. I don't know what it is, but I think that because we're watching history in the making, it becomes very interesting to me. I'm a really big history guy, and I love history. I read history. I do all sorts of stuff with history. And so one of the things that I really, really have been following is the last 500 plus days of this war, right? And February 2023, like I remember, or February 2022, sorry. I remember when I was still in Seattle when this happened, when this all kicked off, and I was working at I was working at a Safeway. That was my second job as a Safeway. And like I listened to a lot of podcasts when I was working. I'd had a headset, had one on, one ear was listening to a podcast, because a lot of the stuff I did at Safeway in their deli, just a lot of prep work in the morning. And, there's a lot of podcasts that were going around talking about, is Russia going to invade? Are they actually going to send troops? Oh my gosh, they're really building a real big reserve of troops on the borders. There they are. They're over there. They're up in Belarus. They've got, 120,000 troops there. What are they going to do with those troops? And then finally February comes around, and Russia just starts sending their soldiers through. You know, yay! And now 500 plus days later, we're still there. Ukraine is still at war. We're still talking about it, but it's always fascinated me to talk about it, because it's like it's history in the making. Right? We are watching history as it's being made. So I'm gonna bring up this. Let's see here. This is still the kind of the best way for me to kind of preserve the information that I can. But a lot of stuff has been happening recently. But I wanted to show you, in this war, Russia came into this as like the second largest military, second best military in the world, right? And they did pretty good in the beginning, but Ukraine kind of punched up a lot and socked them heavy in the face, stopped them cold. We know for a fact that the Russians' main objective at the beginning of the war was to capture Kiev, capture Zelensky, and kill him or imprison him, put him on a show trial, and then install what would be a puppet government, a Russia-sympathized government, and basically extend their influence in that area of the world. We know that it didn't happen, but, you know, I think I'm going to show this to you guys. This might be one of the reasons why it didn't happen. So, you see that right there? This is a T-14 Armata tank. This is supposedly Russia's most advanced, best tank they have. Okay, we want to go back here, right? Now, tanks are not supposed to move like this guy is going to move, okay? You need a stable gun platform to be able to hit your targets. If the barrel is moving a lot, it's not going to hit its target. Now watch this fire. Now watch, like, this is relatively flat surface. Look how much he's moving, right? He's about to fire his cannon. You see that? Do you see how much that the tank itself knocked back? This is supposedly Russia's most advanced tank right here. You see how much that barrel moved? Right? This is supposedly their most advanced tank that they built. But we don't see any of them in combat in Ukraine because they're just not good. Right? Russia has lost, I think, 2,300 confirmed tanks, modern tanks. You know, T-90s, T-80s, T-72s are the most prolific that they use. They've lost a lot, and a lot of that's due to bad design. A lot of it's due to just the sheer fact that Western nations have given Ukraine a buttload of guided anti-tank missiles, like the NLAW, and all that. Now, I want to show you this right here. This is a British Challenger 2, probably one of the best tanks, one of the best modern tanks in the world, besides the Abrams. But watch how this guy fires, okay? I want you to watch what this guy does.
Roger, enemy record. Sorry, Delta.
Now he's going to move around. Watch him fire here, okay? He's getting ready to fire. Look at that. You see that? You guys see that? You guys see how much better that is? This is actual proper engineering right now. Okay, right here. This is actual proper engineering. This is a country that went through so many iterations of tanks. They took the best of what they had and they moved it on to the next and the next. They didn't do any flowery speeches, anything like that. They just made a durable tank. The United Kingdom, in all its years in Iraq, did not actually lose a Challenger 2 tank, I don't believe. Now, a couple of them got dinged up, but they all made them back to base, and the one that got the most damaged was back in the field in hours. Okay? So, you know, this is kind of, and now Ukraine has 14 of these. Okay? Ukraine has 14 of those Challenger tanks. Yes, that is correct, Ice Kitty. That's why you have gyro stabilization. And a lot of that, like, Russia doesn't have that ability because, like it or not, Russia is imitative. They're not innovative, just like the Chinese. And a lot of their equipment, a lot of the little fiddly, tiny bits of material that they need to build their tanks are imported. Ball bearings. Russia can't make their own ball bearings to the specifications necessary for a tank, right? It leads to poor production with the Russian versions of it. They import most of their ball bearings from Europe. They don't have that anymore, right? And they just don't make good stuff. You know, just today, Russia tried to land a lunar module on the moon because for some reason it's a big thing where we all want to go back to the moon. They tried to land a module on the moon. It failed. Go figure, right? Go figure. Roscosmos like, well, it failed. We lost connection. It crashed on the moon. You know? Go figure, right? And so 500 plus days of war has shown the world probably one thing more than anything else. Is that despite everything that Russia says, they are very incompetent at what they do. Take this for instance, right? Okay, this is an airfield. You guys want to know where this airfield is? I'll show you where this airfield is. This airfield is right here. Okay? This airfield is almost 600 kilometers from Ukraine. Okay? 600. This means that Ukraine, in the space of 500 plus days of war, has built a drone or a missile capable enough to fire accurately at a Russian military base that is just south of St. Petersburg. This is one of the bases that that their bombers take off from. Their Tu-22s, their Badger bombers, everything. This is one of the bases that they launch, that they take off from. Then they loiter in the air around it, and they all form up. And they get into position and they launch missiles at Ukrainian civilian targets for the most part. Right? Just today, an art theater was hit. Just today. Okay, a little 6-year-old girl was among the dead. Okay, so Ukraine has innovated something enough that they can go 600, almost 600 kilometers accurately. Okay, accurately, and damage either airplanes or the missiles. Now, if you look here, right, this is the air base, okay? Right down here, right here, just outside of this picture you see. I don't know if you can see this or not. Right in the bottom left, there's like these box things right here. Those are missiles. Russia is openly storing missiles in the open because they think that they can't be attacked, right? They're like, oh, no one's going to attack us here. No one. And look at that. They have these right here. These are revetments for bombers, right? You have the raised edges right here. So if a missile lands right here, it's supposed to mitigate the damage. Or if a missile lands right here, it's only going to damage that plane. They're storing these planes in the open weather. And by St. Petersburg, you're getting a lot of cold weather. Okay? So that means that you have a lot of weather wear and tear on these things that aren't what's meant for airplanes. One of the biggest negatives I could say for Russia in this war is the simple fact that Ukraine is still flying combat missions with fixed wing aircraft and rotary aircraft. Okay, they still have a viable air force a year and a half into this war. That's unheard of. That's like the U.S. The U.S.'s entire pre-invasion mission in everything is to destroy the enemy air force. That's it. But Russia did not suppress enough air defense in the beginning of the war, and they did not destroy enough aircraft for Ukraine to lose their air force. Okay? And now we're talking about training Ukrainians on the F-16 a year late, might I add. I think this is a year late. We should have had F-16s in that country already. And just today Zelensky was in Sweden talking to the Prime Minister of Sweden about Ukrainians training on their JAS Gripens, which is a 4th generation Delta Wing twin engine fighter. It's probably one of the best multi-role fighters out there right now. You give Ukraine a squadron of that and a couple squadrons of F-16, they can probably push back a lot of the Russian air defenses in the area and give their troops some more air support. That's one of the biggest reasons why the current counteroffensive is going so slowly, is because Ukraine can't give any air support to their troops. So their troops are like slogging it out through massive minefields. And so, what's supposed to be the second best military in the world is being beat by, a nobody. Or at least what they thought was a nobody. But now Ukraine has Leopard 2s. They're about to get like 153 Leopard 1A5s once they're done training on them. They're going to get some M1 Abrams. They've got Stryker infantry fighting vehicles. They've got Bradleys. They've got Martyrs. They've got CV90s, the Swedish ones. So even though the West isn't giving them what they need when they need it, to the extent that they need it, they're still getting stuff that puts them on par or better of what the Russians can put out there. And they're still fighting. And so this is something that I've kind of invested in to learn and to grow and to know all this stuff. Ukraine's actually starting to Ukraine's actually starting to domestically producing 155 millimeter artillery shells, which is the NATO standard. They're already starting serial production of their own domestically designed self-propelled 155 millimeter cannons. It's called the Bodana. Let me bring that up for you. Right here, the 2S22 Bodana. Really interesting story about this. At the very beginning of the conflict, this was still in kind of development. They hadn't put it all together, and it was in an area that they feared would be overrun by Russia in the very beginning. Right? It was in the eastern part of the country. They feared, hey, this is going to get run over. They're going to take this and they're going to figure it out and they're going to make it for themselves. So what they did was they planned on destroying everything to do with this, the dyes, everything for it. And a military officer was like, no, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to break this down into parts and we're going to truck it out. So they took vans, they took trucks, they took whatever they could, and they broke this thing down, and piece by piece they drove this out of the city that was in, and they took it out, and they're like, you know what? We're going to set this up in the western side of the country. They finished developing it, and we're starting to see this more and more. It is domestically produced. So we've seen at least 4 of these. We're starting to see more and more, though, which leads me to believe that Ukraine is actually starting to make these in a serial production. It does have some downfalls. It does not have like a self-loader, so people have to actually load it by hand, which cuts down on the time to do it. But just like any other war, it's gonna go through its growing pains through the military, and later models are gonna probably address the deficiencies that it has. But you partner this with the fact that Rheinmetall, which is a German a German arms manufacturer, is going to start up their factory in Ukraine by the end of this month, with the goal of repairing tanks in country. And then Sweden and Ukraine today have signed a declaration of understanding to create a factory to produce their CV-90s, which is their infantry fighting vehicles. I'll show you what those are. These are probably Combat Vehicle 90. They are made in Sweden. BAE Systems makes it. It's a subsidiary for Swedish arms manufacturing. It's got 30 millimeter Mark 44 or a Bushmaster 35 millimeter autocannon. This thing is what everybody wants in Europe. Everybody in Europe wants this. They either want this or they want the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. Okay, so it's like, all right. And so Ukraine and today Ukraine and Sweden was like, you know what? We're gonna sign an understanding that eventually, probably within the next year, we're gonna start building these in Ukraine. Can you imagine? They don't have to ship them from Sweden or any other country that has them. They're gonna be domestically produced in Ukraine. They're gonna train Ukrainians how to build this stuff as a subsidiary factory of Swedish arms manufacturing to build this in a time of war in country. That's how crazy this is. That's how much the world is against Russia right now. Yeah, you're not wrong. The M1A2 Abrams, they don't even make Abrams anymore, guys. I don't think you guys... Red Mave, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. I don't think people realize that the United States military stopped making the Abrams tank in the 90s. After the Gulf War, we have a single factory in Lima, I think, Indiana, Lima, Indiana. I think that's where it was, or it's in Iowa. I can't remember. But their entire purpose, they don't build tanks; they refurbish old M1s. Okay, that's what they do. They refurbish old M1A1s or old M1A2s base models and make them into the SEP V3 or the SEP V4. So we stopped making tanks. The United States stopped making tanks, and people still want our tanks. We retired 400 tanks from the United States Marines because the Marines we just wanted them to become more mobile, right? That's what we did. So we stopped building those tanks. I don't think Germany makes the Leopard 2 anymore. I don't think so. Great Britain or the United Kingdom, I don't think they make the Challengers right now anymore either. Europe kind of got out of the business of warfare. For Europe, 2 world wars in 1 century was kind of enough. They were really like, yeah, we don't want more war. But I mean, the reason why Russia is doing what it is right now is because of the appeasement that Europe tried to put onto the continent. So the Europe is finding out real fast right now in the last 500 days that despite how much they themselves want peace isn't coming, because there's always going to be a bad guy on the other side of the fence. You know, if it's not China, if it's not Russia, 10 years from now it could be China. And make no mistake, China is watching what's happening in Ukraine. They're watching to see who is standing up for Ukraine and who's sitting back. You know, the fact that it's taken so long to get fighter jets, fourth generation fighter jets. And here's the thing. Here's the funny thing. The F-16s that Ukraine is going to get are not even the most modern F-16s. They're some of the oldest F-16s. They're like the ones that they're talking about are the ones that don't have the most modern avionics, the most modern stuff in them. And it's still taken a year for us to just decide to say, yeah, okay, we'll get it for you. Just yesterday, the U.S. said that they had started training Ukrainian pilots, technicians, and maintenance personnel. It takes 6 months minimum to learn how to fly those things. 6 months, which means we're not looking at the fall to see F-16s in the air in Ukraine. We're looking at next year at the earliest. And they're talking about even if they get them, they're not going to actually be a viable force multiplier for probably 2 years, because it takes experience. And the thing that people keep getting caught up on the whole should we give Ukraine F-16s, it's not the planes themselves that the Ukrainians need. The planes are okay. The planes are good. It's better than the Soviet gear that they have, the MiGs and the Sus, right? The Su-31, the MiG-29. It's better than that. What it is back in the Cold War. I'll get a little history lesson for you guys, okay? Back in the Cold War, the Soviets determined that they wanted to win by numbers. So what did they do? They built armies that were in the millions. You know, they had a 1 million man standing army with 2 or 3 million in reserve. Constantly training, constantly rotating. They had contracts like 2 years, constantly rotating in and out, right? They had a standing army of like 1 million men. The United States and NATO was like, we cannot compete against that toe-to-toe. We cannot put 1 million men toe-to-toe against the Russians. They knew it. That's what they knew. So they said, okay, if we can't compete with them toe-to-toe, we need to beat them technologically. So what happened was NATO and the U.S., they have some of the biggest brain power in the world. They really do. They have, because in a country like Russia, scientists, engineers that are smart are going to question what's going on. And repressive regimes can't have that. So they either defected, they towed the line, or they were killed. Okay? But in the U.S., that's not what happened. We basically gave engineers and scientists free rein to figure stuff out. So while Russia was slowly building up artillery and tanks, they weren't engineering as fast as the U.S. and NATO was. The U.S. and NATO were sitting there like, okay, we want missiles that can shoot you over the horizon, right? Because if you can't see us, you can't shoot us. If our missiles can hit you from 150 miles away, and yours are half that distance at 70 to 75 miles, if I have proper air surveillance radar, which the United States perfected basically with AWACS, if I have the ability to look over the horizon, you're dead. We win because you can't see us. Your numbers are cut in half by the time you get into missile range, right? And so what the United States and NATO did was they put all of their efforts into advancing technologically so that their smaller military could have a chance to defend Europe against any type of Soviet invasion. Because all through the 70s and 80s and early 90s, that's what the fear was. Before that wall fell, it was always the fear that Russia would somehow go over the line and attack NATO. So when you go back to the F-16 and why it's important to give the F-16 to Ukraine, it's because of the munitions that the F-16 can carry. That's why it's important. The F-16 can carry those over-the-horizon missiles that can shoot down Soviet aircraft. The F-16 can make the best use of HARM missiles, anti-radiation missiles that seek out Soviet or Russian air defense radars. The radar is the most important part of an air defense system because the radar is what detects the aircraft and launches and tells you to launch the missiles. You take the radars out, you don't have the missiles to launch because the missiles become useless. So when people are talking about giving them the jets would be escalatory and we shouldn't do it, you're just delaying the inevitable. Because once Ukraine gets those, then now they can properly use their JDAM, their standoff joint missiles, right? Their GPS guided missiles, the bombs. Now they can use their arms to the greatest effect. Now they could potentially destroy the entire Russian air defense network in Ukraine, which then opens up the possibility of Ukraine gaining air superiority, not just air supremacy, not just suppressing the Russian Air Force away from their air defense network, but actual legitimate air supremacy, which is what U.S. doctrine dictates. Back in the 90s, when the U.S. was planning on invading Iraq the first time, they were very worried about the Iraqi Air Force because the Iraqi Air Force had just basically gone through 10 years of combat experience fighting Iran. So the U.S. was like, we got to take these guys out. Now the U.S., for the last 40-odd years, has made it their mission to do what's called combined arms tactic, which means their Air Force, their Army, their Navy, everything works together. In one night in 1991, when America kicked off the invasion, when NATO kicked off the invasion of Iraq in the early 90s, in one night the Americans destroyed all of Iraq's Air Force. Now, could you imagine if Ukraine was able to push back Russian air assets from their borders? How much of a difference that would make for their army on the ground? This is why that Washington Post, when we see that Washington Post article, I don't really believe it as much, but they're saying that 500,000 people have become casualties in this war in 500 days. Obviously, they're saying that Russia is like 180,000 dead, Ukraine's at 120. That's a lot of people dead, guys. And we could have prevented that. This war could be over if the United States and NATO had the political will to end it, to give Ukraine what they needed to win, not just what they needed to hold off the Russians. And that's why, that's when I'm disseminating this information daily. I go to my TikTok, I make videos, and now I'm going to be doing this on here, just relaying news to you guys. That's what really irks me about what's going on in Ukraine is we could have given them everything they needed. We could have given them everything that they wanted, but we didn't. And we're still slow walking our stuff to it. One of the things that Soviet doctrine and that Russia does is they do what's called defense in depth. Okay? No, they do. It's basically multiple layers of trenches is what they do. Russian defense in depth. Now what they do, see if I can find a good image of this. Okay, right here. This is basically what they do. Let's see if where's this image. Right here. Okay. This is defense in depth of Russia, right? It's 3 layers. 1, 2, 3. Okay. This right here, this area right here, this is basically where the division headquarters is. It's where their artillery is. It's where their long range stuff is. This right here is their short range artillery. It's for fire support of the line. These people in this front line are supposed to kind of fall back once the enemy gets through the minefields. And they're supposed to fall back onto the second line and then counterattack in. Russia had let's go back here. Russia had 8 months almost. While everybody was busy in Bakhmut right here, Russia had like months and months to prepare defensive fortifications in this entire area. The city of Tokmak, this is kind of a distribution hub for the Russian supplies. This is surrounded by layers of defense. Okay. The United States and NATO has the equipment to do mine clearing, but they're kind of slow walking it to Ukraine. So Ukraine has taken the last 2 months to get through this main line of defense was in this area right here. We go right here. This is where they're at right now. Robotin, right? They started about right here. Okay. Now they've taken area. They've retaken land. They've opened up gray zones, right? And they're in multiple areas. They've got multiple advances, areas of advance and everything. But the reason why it's going so slow is simple. They just don't have the equipment. Yes, go ahead, Ice Kitty. Sorry, I wasn't watching. I was kind of in the zone there. Go ahead and ask a question. What happened to the camera giveaway? It never got up there. I kind of had to stop streaming for a little bit, so I might have to. I think I saved the names. I might have to go back to it when I get everything steady again. So I never hit my goal, and in the middle of trying to hit my goal, I basically stopped streaming for a while. And so it never materialized the way I wanted it to, so unfortunately it never got to the point I needed it to get to. No, I understand. It's a good question. But going back to this, so the United States has these things called MICLICs. Basically, they are mine clearing charges. Basically, it's a trailer that gets pushed along. See this right here? That's about a 300 meter long cord, and all of that is det cord. It's also C4. Throws this out there. Watch this explosion, guys. Backs you up. Boom. That is supposed to clear mines, is what that is. That is a mine clearing line charge called a MICLIC. The United States made those, and they're supposed to send them to, you guessed it, Ukraine. Now, Ukraine states that they only got about, maybe 25% of these MICLICs, which makes it hard for them to clear mines. They actually changed tactics because they didn't have enough mine clearing, and they kept running into mines. They changed the tactic of sending drones out in the middle of the night after sunset, because the ground cools in sunset. When the sun doesn't hit them, the ground cools. But the metal and the plastic in the mines actually holds heat for a while longer. So you have these images. Let me see if I can find them. You have images. You have these nighttime images. Let's see if I can find this. Okay, I can't find it, but you have these nighttime images, right, of drones going over the battlefield at night, in the middle of the night, with their thermals, and just they can see entire lines of mines that Ukrainian sappers have to go out and clear for their troops the next day. And that's a lot of what Ukraine is having to take over. Now there's 3 separate lines that Ukraine has to attack. The first one is called the Surovikin line. It's the main front line. The one thing that Ukraine has going for it is that Russia doesn't have enough troops to man these trenches all the way. So they're doing what's called lateral movement of troops. They're moving troops from east to west. Now, typically when you're in the situation that Russia is in on the defense like this, defense in depth, you don't want to move troops laterally, because when you move troops laterally from one direction to another, you're weakening the line where they're moving from. So if you're moving, so if we go back to this image here, this map, say you have troops in this area right here in combat. You're about to lose, the Russians are about to lose this line area right here. They need to move troops, the only troops they have available, right here. They move troops here, they move a brigade from here, move it here to shore up their defense. Now you've weakened this area. Now what happens if you break through here? That's what Russia's running into right now. They have men, they have artillery. They're kind of at an artillery parity with Ukraine, but that's not going to really last much longer. We're still about 6 to 8 months out from Ukraine and then Western world ramping up 155 millimeter artillery production in enough of a way to really make up the difference. But Russia's not really able to produce artillery rounds to the degree that they want to. So, but the point is, when you move troops from this area, they're moving this way. They don't have troops around here to move up to counterattack or to fill gaps. They don't have those troops anymore. Most of the troops are fighting on the line right now. They're mobilized. Right over here, they blew up a dam in this area. The Russians did. Right here, the Kakova Dam, right in this area. They blew it up, which basically flooded this entire area for a while. But now that's starting to dry up. So now they've basically almost certainly opened up a possibility of a new line over here. Ukraine's already sent troops down in this area. You see this right here? This is what's called a gray zone. It's where Ukraine troops are right here. Okay? This is where Russia's are, and they have not been able to push out. Now this bridge is destroyed. The Antonovsky Bridge, that's not a bridge there. It says it on the map that there's a bridge, but this bridge it's been destroyed. It was pretty massively destroyed. Now Ukraine has bridging equipment, but I don't think they're in any position to actually rebuild this bridge right now. But they're sending troops over slowly, and there's areas up in this area right here that are drying out, that are giving Ukraine the ability to possibly send troops over in a new front. So Russia and Ukraine are going against the clock right now because they're getting closer and closer to what's called the Raspusta, or the Raputista, which is basically mud season. A lot of these areas aren't developed with hard roads, so it starts raining a lot and the roads get muddied out, and it's very hard to move around. That starts in the fall. We're about a month and a half away from that. So, can Ukraine break out enough? Now, Western intelligence, which is an oxymoron in itself, is saying that Ukraine should go to Melitopol. Now, Melitopol does not do what Ukraine wants to do. Ukraine wants to cut this land bridge from Crimea to this area right here. This was one of Russia's main goals in the war, was to create a land bridge from Russia all the way to Crimea, so they didn't have to worry about the bridge all the time. Now they have that bridge, they have that land bridge, but if Ukraine can break through here, or here, or they can break through here, there's not much other than mines and poorly placed what's called dragon's teeth to stop Ukraine from actually hitting a stride and taking land. They could bypass Tokmak entirely, right? And go here to Berdansk or to Mariupol. And if they take either one of these cities, they don't even have to take the cities, but if they get to this road right here, the M14, that cuts the Russian land bridge and makes it unviable, really, for the troops here to stay there. Which means that the troops in this area probably have to fall back into Crimea, and then Ukraine can probably take this entire area again. So that's Ukraine's goal. Ukraine's goal is to cut the land bridge that does it. Yes, Dragon's Teeth are what's called are tank barriers. They started out in World War II. This is actually from in Aachen, Germany. These are still there. Basically, what you do is you dig around it, and you bury these into the ground. Right now, the reason why I say Russia's gonna have uselessness for their dragon's teeth is because a lot of the things right here. You see what this is? You see this, guys? Look at this. What's missing with these dragon's teeth? What's missing? Can you guys tell me what's missing there? When you look at that? What's missing here, guys, is these are not dug into the ground. These are above ground. Okay? So a tank can just drive into these. You put a bulldozer on front of a tank. You go through the mines that are going to be in this area right here. You go through the mine. The minefield would be probably about a kilometer west away from these dragon's teeth. It would be designed to slow down the tanks, right? The advance. You go through those dragon's teeth, or you go through the minefields. You get through these minefields, and all you need to do if you're Ukraine is you need to bring up a couple of tanks with plows, and it plows those things out of the way, and it opens up an avenue for Ukraine to keep advancing. That's what that does. So these right here are useless because they're not buried into the ground. They were just dumped onto the ground thinking, oh, that's good enough. But that's not good enough. You have to bury those things into the ground so that they can't move when a tank runs into them. The purpose of a dragon's teeth is for the tank to not be able to go through it. And when that's the way you look, you're going to go straight through that. Because exactly. A lot of tanks that Ukraine has, they can just put plows on them. Let me show you. Right here. See this? You dump that down there. You put that down. That's going to be good for clearing mines or clearing dragon's teeth out of the way. And now you're going to have 31 of those spearheading an assault by Ukraine through dragon's teeth. Now they're not going to be able to stop it. And that's when it's the possibility of what happened last year in this area in what's called the Kharkiv offensive. The Russians didn't have defensive lines set up properly. The Ukrainians achieved a tactical surprise and took back all of this land. And then, while Russia was busy sending troops in this area to stop the Ukrainian advance, they assaulted here and took back the entire city of Kherson. Kherson was the largest city that Russia had captured in the war up to that point. And Ukraine was able to take it back because they achieved tactical surprise. Now, tactical surprise wasn't really an option here. Basically, everybody knew where Ukraine had to attack. They could only really attack in one area. There wasn't anywhere else for them to go. And it took so long for NATO and the West to give them the proper equipment and the training. And so it gave Russia all the time in the world to build defensive works outside of Ukrainian artillery range, like the mines on the Dragon's Teeth and the trenches and everything. So, it's a slogging match. Ukraine is losing troops. It's not very pretty down there, I'm sure. I wish I had people that I knew there to give me first-hand accounts. But, the videos that you see, everything you watch, certainly does not paint a rosy picture in regards to what Ukraine is going through. But you got to remember, these people are fighting for their home, for their country, and they are definitely not wanting to back down at all. So I had my headset off the whole time. It's weird. I was wondering why I didn't hear sound when I did that. So, So, this was kind of for me, this was a get back into the swing of things, get back into it, figure out whether I still could do it or not. And I actually kind of enjoyed being able to ramble and just chat. Streaming games kind of became kind of a just you know. All the games I really liked to stream were on my Xbox, and I didn't have a camera that was good enough to be on the Xbox, or a mic system or anything. And when you stream from your Xbox, it's just different. So, and then it didn't really it didn't really relegate me to talking to you guys, my chat. So I think I'm gonna probably call it a night for tonight. I really appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out and showing me that, hey, still appreciate a little bit of what I do. I think this is what I'm going to do from now on. I'm gonna basically do just chatting stuff and world events and stuff like that, mainly. So, who we got here? Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna end it here tonight, guys. I will try to be back on tomorrow night, and we will talk some more. I'll probably ramble like I keep rambling all the time because I'm a rambling man. But thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for talking and chatting. Red Mave, thank you. Love the name. Thank you for the follow. I will see you guys tomorrow night, probably around the same time. I will post it online when I go online. But thank you.